Hey, Kira, thank you so much.
You're alive.
Yes, very, very much so.
I held my breath for 4 minutes.
Hey, Kira, do you mind making me host, please? Perfect. 1, 2, 3, 4. All right, we'll give it another 1 more minute and we shall get started. All right, everyone. Good evening. The time now is 7:06. And I will call this February meeting of the Parks and Recreation meeting. So just first things first, my name is Ramdat Singh. I am the chair of the Parks and Recreation Committee. And I guess we should do introductions. That way there's a lot of people on here. So can I just have the committee members just introduce yourself? And then we can go to the parks groups. So I see Deb first, and then we can go in order.
I can do it too first. So I'm the on the on the community board 8 Parks Committee, and then I'm also the chair of Traffic and Transportation, and I'm the founder for Jerome Park Friends and Neighbors.
I guess Bob.
Sure, I'm also a member of the Parks Committee and I'm vice chair of the community board, Bob Bender.
And Rob.
I'm Rob Jaklowski. I'm a secretary of the community board and a member of the Parks Committee.
And David.
Yes, David Gilman, member of the community board, Parks, Traffic and Transportation, Land Use, and I chair the Budget Committee.
Perfect. And let's see, I think that's the and can I just have everyone else just say your name and which parks group you're from? Stephanie, I don't know if do you want to start us off?
Sure. Stephanie Ehrlich, Van Cortlandt Park Administrator and Executive Director of Van Cortlandt Park Alliance.
With my namesake behind you.
Exactly.
And Stephanie, do you mind popcorn it to somebody else?
Oh, sure. I will toss it over to Christina.
Hi, Christina Taylor, Deputy Director for the Van Cortlandt Park Alliance. And I can give it to Jody.
Hi there, Jody Colon, Friends of Spite and Dival. We work in many parks, including the natural areas. Is Stephanie Coggins here?
Yes, I am. Can you hear
Your
me?
turn.
Oh, wait.
Yeah, we can hear you, Stephanie.
Okay, yeah, I'm sorry. Someone is calling me at the same time. My name is Stephanie Coggins. I'm with the stewards of Henry Hudson Park. And I work on a variety of different community activities.
And do you want to popcorn it to someone else?
I'm sorry. Why don't you do it for me?
I guess I'll pop it over to Mike.
Hi, I'm Mike Gabert. I'm with the stewards of Bruss Park. And I will send it over to Jacqueline.
Hi, I'm Jacqueline Hosford. I'm the co-founder of the Stewards of Bruss Park. And I wanted to send it over to Abigail Martin, who is also working with us.
Hi, sorry, I'm working with a bad camera here. I need a few more minutes to get to my other workspace. I'm with the stewards of Bruss Park as well. And I will send it over to Christina. Did she go already?
She already spoke.
Oh, Jose?
How about Joe M., which I believe is McNeary?
Joe M.
Yes, this is Joe Magnieri. I am the District 8 manager for all the park properties in District 8, Parks manager.
There, Jose.
Oh, hi. I'm sorry. Hello, I'm on the train. I'm sorry.
Oh, okay, no, just
Getting
name
from
and
work.
okay.
Yes, I'm a volunteer of the Ewing Park on Riverdale and 231st.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Liana or Leona.
Hi, I'm Leona. I'm not with any park specifically. I'm an applicant to the board, and I spend a lot of time in the parks. I run in them, so I have an interest in them.
Oh, perfect. Hopefully you'll be joining this committee. Noel.
Hello, I'm part of the Vital Volunteers group in Van Cortlandt Park, and I enjoy the parks a lot, and I'm interested in what's going on here.
And Ira. All right. And Araceli.
Hi, good evening. My name is Araceli. I'm a resident of the Kingsbridge. And I'm just here to hear what's up, what is updates with the park. I'm also working in the community as a nonprofit. We do read alouds for children, and we also do parent workshops. So yeah, thank you.
And last but not least, Layla.
Yes, I, along with Jose, am part of the Ewing Park volunteer group. And we've been doing a lot of work.
Perfect. Thank you all so much for being here. Before we begin, I just want to amend the agenda. I do want to add one item, which is just a discussion of fiscal year 2023. We just got OMB's report. Is everyone fine with that? The committee members? Yeah, perfect. Oh, amazing. So first things first is my chair's report. I'm gonna keep this really short because I know we have a lot to talk about. First, I am deeply disturbed by all the racist graffiti that's been popping up in our parks lately. We've had a graffiti issue in the parks before, but now it's a lot of racist language popping up on the equipment, the slides, the climbing rocks, so on and so forth. And just want to thank, the two individuals that helped, the two women that helped clean it up, in PS 24's playground, but also want to thank Parks Department for, you know, stepping up and getting that power washed quickly. So thank you to the Parks Department. And, you know, if any one of you see any graffiti while walking in the parks, please report it to 311. And you all have my email now. So just email me a screenshot of the ticket number. That way I could follow up with the board office to ensure that, you know, we get this power washed and taken care of. And Half Moon Overlook, I know this has been a constant struggle. And just want to say thank you to Jody for keeping us in the loop about Half Moon Overlook and for keeping us updated on everything that Victor has been doing. I did follow up with I had the board office, our district manager, reach out to Linda Bonilla. Linda Bonilla just pretty much mentioned that Victor has been uncooperative and is deferring a lot of the complaints to operations. And we're just waiting to see what the next step would be for Half Moon Overlook and with this individual. All right. And as you probably noticed or heard already, the Mayor Adams has released his preliminary budget for the upcoming year. And in his budget, there is an allocation of just $500 million to parks out of the total budget of $98.5 billion. And City Council member Shekhar Krishnan from Queens, who is the chair of the City Council Parks Committee, is already taken back by this small allocation and is already pushing back. So we'll see when budget season comes between the City Council, what will happen if that number for parks hopefully is increased. And last but not least, today I attended the Van Cortlandt Park Water Summit. Thank you so much to Stephanie, you did an amazing job. I know Deb was there. I'm not gonna go through everything that was said because I'll probably need the whole hour, but I will definitely pass around the link of the recording to the committee members, all right? I do see Rob's hand and then David's.
Yeah, so I called in the graffiti that was in Ewan Park on like Sunday and they cleaned it today at 1 p.m. So it was very quick action. It wasn't, as far as I could tell, racist graffiti. It was just graffiti on the sign and on the chest there. And it was more or less gone by 1 p.m. So good work.
Perfect. Amazing. David and then Bob.
Yeah, I just wanted to underscore, you only briefly touched on this Half Moon thing with Victor. I don't know if you saw the email that I sent, I think it was yesterday, or the day before, where he is now promoting that the Half Moon Garden has been seeded, which is clearly trying to invite people to go and like one would normally do in a garden area or a park area, and traipse through it and walk through it and all that. And this is extremely dangerous. He just doesn't get how much danger he's exposing people to. And I am not a sensationalist. People could die. And Joe, I don't know if you have any updates for us, but this is really serious. I mean, he needs to be threatened by either the Corporation Council of the City of New York or the District Attorney of Bronx County. It is that dangerous. I mean, I know Jody has shared with us this morning the mess that was left there, and that is a really bad thing. It's not clear that it comes from Victor or not, but what Victor is doing is creating what's known in tort law as an attractive nuisance. And people could die, and the city and the Parks Department would be legally liable and financially liable for what he is inviting, even though it's quite clear that Parks is opposed to this. Joe, do you have any updates on this?
Yes, thanks.
No,
David.
Joe Magnieri. Joe Magnieri.
Oh, I thought you said Jody.
No.
Hey, David. Yeah, so I can't tell you what has happened recently, but I can say that, there's been a lot of conversations and we've made our stance clear that we don't want him working in there. I urge the community to let us know. I mean, a lot of people here have my email. If you see him there, and you email me, I could get Pep there to stop him. Maybe if he knows that while he's there and people report it, then I could have him removed. I could try to make it like I could talk to Captain Sanchez about possibly doing some patrols by there. But as far as like all the legal, the legal avenues and stuff, I really can't speak to that. But if you keep me informed, I could have Pep swing by when he's there and have him removed, and maybe that will deter him from.
Joe, I don't know about others, but I've never seen him. I don't know that I think I met him once at something completely different. I've never seen him there, but he keeps on posting to Nextdoor, which is sort of like a neighborhood Facebook, and basically promoting how wonderful the park is, which is true. If he would tell people to just stay and watch from the overlook, I'd have no problem with that. But he keeps on trying to invite people down below, and he publicizes it with his name. And I got to believe that the Corporation Council or the District Attorney's Office can use that as a basis to sanction him.
Yeah.
I don't know what level of sanction is available, but this, I'm not kidding. This is serious.
Yeah, I could mention, something like that to Dan, my boss Dan, and
Yeah.
see where that could go. But I really can't, make any promises or anything like that. I really don't
No, I
know
understand
where they
that,
would go
Joe.
with that. But I also know that we welded a lock, so anybody going down there is hopping that gate. Like we actually welded the lock to the fence, so we lock it. So anybody going down there they have to hop the wrought iron gate.
It doesn't stop somebody.
Yeah.
It doesn't stop anybody from doing it. It doesn't stop them from their estate from suing the city for the attractive nuisance. At the very least, there needs to be a bright red sign saying no unauthorized access. I mean, yeah, of course, a lock implies that, but you need to have a big red sign just beyond the gate saying, unauthorized users prohibited, or something to that effect.
All right, Bob, and then I see Jody and Stephanie's hands are up as well.
Yeah, I actually, I raised my hand for a different subject.
Okay.
But
Want
I
me
guess,
to come back to you?
yeah, no, let me say
Okay.
what I was going to say, and then,
Yep.
but there are two issues now. With regard to the parks funding and the city budget, Adams campaigned on 1% for parks. And in fact, the budget is 1/2 of 1% for parks. So, I mean, I don't know what we can do at this point to hold him to his commitment or, or what he campaigned on. But our council member is a member of the Parks Committee in the City Council. And I do think that, it would be good for us to be in touch with Councilman Dinowitz and to remind him that the mayor did campaign on a more robust budget for the Parks Department. And we really, we may not get the 1%, but he's got to do better than what he's doing right now, because, we've all seen over the last couple of years how the parks have been our salvation during the the COVID epidemic. And for them not to get the funding that's necessary, I think is terrible. And I really think we have to do something about that. Now, on the subject of Victor, and I'll be very brief because this could go on all night, I know. I think, Joe, we don't have a borough commissioner at the moment, so far as I know, but I think we need to have a conversation with Dan Reynolds and Mike Bratton and figure out what we're going to do about this fellow, because he is a menace. He is not only a danger to the parks, he's a danger to the community. And, we've got to figure out some way to deal with him. I don't know what the legal ramifications are. I don't want to get into that. That's outside my expertise. But I think we really do need to have a high-level parks meeting with the community board, with Ramdot, obviously, and figure out how we're going to deal with this guy, because at some point, somebody's going to get badly hurt with what he's doing right now. So I want to put that out there, Joe, and I think we can follow up with you, but I really think that's what we've got to be doing at this point.
I think that's a good idea, Bob. I'll speak to them tomorrow morning and we'll set something up.
Okay, thank you.
And I sent you and Dan the link to to Victor's posting yesterday morning.
All right, Jody.
Hi, thank you. I want to speak on the two things Bob mentioned. So first, 1% for parks has been a very long ask for the city budget from community groups. I actually co-founded the Bronx Coalition for Parks and Green Spaces back in 2001 to create a coalition of groups to ask for a bigger piece of a bigger pie, fighting over pieces of it. But Adams did tweet that parks are essential. And I haven't done a deep dive into the line items like I normally do, but the PEG analysis showed that 250 positions have been eliminated in the Parks Department. And that's without layoffs. And the only way you do that is either attrition or by not hiring seasonal workers. And right now we have a lot of the stewards groups on the call. And that's my second part, is volunteers can only do so much. And there are so many volunteers in this community. Every single one of us have been approved by Partnership for Parks. We've had to take leadership training with them, or have taken the Super Stewards program, which allows you to volunteer by yourself in a specific natural area. And I have discussed those with Victor multiple times, and he has no training. He's removing native plants as well as invasives. And the problem is he's getting encouragement by people who are giving him money because he's saying that he's doing it to support the lack of funding in the Parks Department's budget. But this is unsanctioned, unskilled, and illegal work. And it's been going on since May of 2021. And it has to stop now, because that natural area is destroyed. And that's part of why I want to put into the capital budget rehabilitation of Shorefront Park. The bridge has also destroyed the other part of the park, but Victor has single-handedly done more environmental damage than any storm could do. So those are my two short things, but I promise I will go through all the 4,000 pages and find the line items for parks and give you an update, as I've done for previous chairs.
Thanks, Jody. Hey, Stephanie.
Unmute. Okay.
You're on
Start
mute,
video.
yes.
Okay. This is a bit of, I do want to speak about what the stewards of Henry Hudson Park, what our priorities are later, but I just want to basically echo what a couple of people have said, but in a different way. I have a relationship, not a personal relationship, but I've had encounters with Victor going back, I guess probably at least a year now. am very active on social media, and I noticed that he is not on Facebook anymore. He is on Nextdoor, as David brought up. The one thing that I think can't underestimate about Victor is the fact that not only is he a danger to the community in terms of inviting people into that location, and then a danger in terms of the environment, but he's also a danger to the reputation of the community board and parks, because he enacts a public relations campaign to discredit anyone who goes up against him. And let me tell you, he's been very successful at it. And there are a lot of people out there who think that the problem is not Victor, the problem is you, okay? Parks and the community board are the problem. And I don't think you can underestimate this. You really have to take it seriously, because it will discredit the entire community board if you don't. And that's basically what I have to say about Victor.
Hey, David, this last point, and then we'll move on, because I want to give ample amount of time to everyone, especially
Yeah,
the
no, that's
parks
okay.
group.
I think of most of the territory has been covered. Thank you.
All right, perfect. So I just want to quickly share my screen and just touch upon fiscal year 2023's budget and the response we have received from OMB, the Office of Management, Budget and Management. I always forget the acronym.
Office of Management and Budget.
Yes, there we go. I always forget the acronym. Too many acronyms.
It's basically the mayor's fiscal office.
Too many acronyms in the New York City, government. All right. So what I did was I looked at the report that OMB sent us and just screenshotted the parts that are applicable to this committee specifically. And Bob, you can see my screen, right? Okay, perfect.
Well, can you blow it up?
Yes. Is that better?
Maybe you made it. There you go. Yeah,
Perfect.
that's much better.
Much
Perfect.
better. Thank you.
No worries. Thank you for that. So first thing is I'm gonna go through each one of our line items from last year and let you all know what OMB's response was. So this one was construct the restrooms at Broadway and West 251st Street in Van Cortlandt Park, adjacent to the parade grounds. And Parks Department, OMB said the Parks Department funds are insufficient for this purpose, and recommends us bringing it to our council members. Then the next one was improving access to the building in the park, rehabilitate the wrought iron boundary fence and exterior red brick stairway into the mansion. And OMB mentioned that this request is partially funded and that we should reach out to Parks and Rec for specifics on, the process and so on and so forth. Then improvements to Washington's Walk, including new benches, replacing temporary fence with a wrought iron fence, and repair of adjacent sidewalk. Parks Department funds are insufficient, and they recommended to bring it this issue to our city council members. And let me know if I am going too fast. I can slow down. The next thing was erosion control measures in Ewan Park to prevent runoff downhill towards Riverdale Avenue. There needs to be a further study by the agency of this request is needed. And I know that before I became chair, there was a study or a walkthrough done of Ewan Park. So I need to follow up with Kira and find out why is there a further study that needs to occur. And then we have Spandau Shorefront Park. Shorefront Park, reconstruction of the pond wall at Spy and Dival Park to prevent water runoff into the roadway in the parking lot of Metro North Station. OMB mentioned further study is needed. And next is construction of Old Fort 4 Park, including playground equipment, basketball courts, benches, green space, stone walls, and fencing. Parks Department funds are insufficient and recommended us to reach out to our city council members. Capital budget request for DPR. This was connection of sewer to former Moshulu Golf Course house, so that the golf house can become a parks headquarters building. The committee urges DPR to ask DEP to provide funding for this project. Parks funds are insufficient, once again, for us to bring it to our city council members. And I think there's 3 more, so bear with me. The next one was enhancing park safety through more security staff, gardeners and other personnel, sufficient for proper maintenance of lawns, landscaped areas, and sidewalk green streets. This request was supported for personnel. And then this one was other park maintenance and safety requests. This one was Parks DPR PEP personnel sufficient to alleviate with assistance of NYPD illegal use of Putnam Trail by electric bikes, motorbikes, and ATVs. Seasonal problem of unlawful barbecues in CB8 parks. Chronic double parking along Broadway adjacent to Van Cortlandt Park, the parade grounds, and to enforce regulations in Van Cortlandt Park and other CB8 parks. And Parks Department would support this request. And last but not least, this was equipment to large Packer garbage trucks. Given serious and increasing trash conditions, Parks Department needs 1 large garbage truck for a district. Currently, equipment is shared with another district, and an additional large garbage truck is requested by Van Cortlandt Park Alliance. And Parks Department claimed that this was insufficient. Hey, Bob.
Ramdad, yeah, a couple of observations. You've mixed both capital and expense priorities here.
Yeah, I just realized that.
Yeah, and you also you began with our number 2 capital project, capital request from last year. You seem to have missed the number 1 capital request, which was the Bailey Avenue Playground.
Yeah. That one is, I literally saw, I don't know why it didn't go into the document, but the Bailey, Bob, do you want to talk about that one or?
Yeah, sure. You know, we've gone back and forth over the years between number 1 and number 2, between the Bailey Avenue Playground and the restroom at 251st Street and the parade grounds in Van Cortlandt. And I mean, frankly, you know, they're both important, which is why they're number 1 and number 2. You know, the difference between them is insignificant. Bailey Avenue Playground is located at 234th Street and Bailey Avenue. And it's a big blacktop expanse with outdated playground equipment. It has a drainage problem where the storm drains back up from time to time and the Parks Department has to clear them out. But it's just the most uninviting looking playground you could imagine. I mean, it looks, as I've said, not like a park, but like a parking lot. It's all blacktop. It's just ugly. There is no green space. It connects to Tibbetts Tail, which is right behind it. And, you know, with I would think some imagination and some work, it could be made a much more inviting playground. And it's in a relatively underserved part of the community board. So it is a very important priority. And whether it's number 1 or number 2, it's something we really do need to be advocating for. So, that's something I wanted to point out.
Yep.
The other thing I wanted to say is that the standard response from the Parks Department to our requests is that they support the request, but the funds are insufficient. And what that means is that the Parks Department does not have a capital budget. It gets its capital funding from our elected officials, which is a ridiculous state of affairs, but that's the way it is. That's the way it's been for many years. We have to go to the elected officials and ask them to fund these projects because the Parks Department doesn't have a capital budget. When they say a project requires further study, that's sort of the Parks Department's way of saying, we don't really get this. We don't really understand why this is a priority for you. And so it's going to require further explanation and further support to persuade the Parks Department that this should be a priority. So I'm just, for the sake of everybody who's relatively new to this process, I'm trying to interpret the Parks Department comments so we understand what they mean. But again, we're mixing apples and oranges a little bit here. There's the capital projects and there's the expense projects. We want to be careful to clarify the distinction between the two of them.
Yeah, thank you so much, Bob, for that. And Deb, yeah, your hand is up.
Oh yeah, I just wanted to just really the kind of advocate for Bailey Playground remaining our #1 budget priority for a few reasons. One, I totally agree with Bob that it's not inviting. It has major drainage issues. Some of those drainage issues also impact the Major Deegan and the Broadway corridor because it doesn't stop water that's coming down the hill. That the Tibbetts Tail is currently fenced off and it's not in good condition, but it also is completely fenced off and can't be used because it's not safe. That the the Bailey Playground is essentially also kind of doing double duty, and Joe may want to speak to this. It's doing double duty. It's just kind of the central headquarters for the park staff. And so, it's inadequate in that capacity as well, just providing a place for them to have lunch and I'm sure go to the bathroom and all the regular things that regular people need to do. And so I would just really think that there's a lot of, there's so many things that a renovation of the Bailey Playground would bring to that neighborhood and just to parks in general in our district by providing support for the park staff. The one thing I wanted to call out were two things. One was on the topic of the erosion control measures in Ewan Park to prevent the runoff. The note I have from last year is that Dan Reynolds, that there was a discussion about what was causing the erosion, and that Dan Reynolds was the person who was following up on it. They thought that it might be an adjacent building whose laundry room was draining out into that quadrant of the park. And so that was kind of where we last left it. Was Dan Reynolds was the person who was going to check on exactly what quadrant it was and whether it was related to the building near next door. And then I've got also the footbridge over Tibbetts Brook, the birding bridge. I don't know if you mentioned that one.
I think I may have left that one off. I apologize.
I don't know if that's still, that one I think was maybe partially funded last year, and I wasn't sure if it's now just officially off the list or if it's just what this, I guess basically what the status of it is, if there's still funding needed for that.
It was not partially funded last year, so funding is still needed.
Okay. Thanks, Stephanie.
Thanks so much for that. Any other questions about those capital and expense requests from last year? Bob and then Jody.
Yeah, sorry to take up a little more time, but Stephanie, can you just clarify on the Van Cortlandt, the fence and the steps? Now, I believe it's the fence that's funded, but the steps are not. Do I have it right?
Yes, partially. There's actually some funding missing for the fence. So $2.2 million was allocated for the fence, but that's apparently not enough. There's another 676,000 that's needed for the fence. And so that's something that hopefully councilmen can put toward it. But
And
the red steps are not
unfunded?
funded. They are unfunded.
And do you have an estimate on what it would cost to repair those steps?
The last estimate was $6 million, but that estimate is a few years ago. So you have to account for escalation. So more than 6 million, 8 million maybe.
Just to repair the steps?
Mm-hmm.
If I volunteer to do some of the work, I mean, $6 million?
Do we, yeah, I mean, when we say steps, I mean, I think of the 10 or 12 steps at the southernmost edge.
Mm-hmm.
That's six.
Yes.
Or for 2.5 million, can we access the road that the golf carts go on and use that?
What?
This is the birding bridge adjacent to the access
No.
road for the.
No, we're talking
golf
about the
course?
museum brick steps.
Oh, the
Yeah.
brick steps. Oh, I
Uh-huh.
thought we were talking about the birding bridge. I'm sorry.
All right, Jody.
Hi, Ramdet. I totally want to say, yes, Bob, absolutely. That's what those phrases mean. Spuyten Duyvil Shorefront Park Pond Retaining Wall has been on the list for 15 to 20 years. And part of it is the not enough funding or study needed. Studies cost money as well. And by the park's budget staying as little as it is and it relying on members' money, continues this trend that doesn't get parks the services that they need until it becomes a capital project and is in disrepair. And natural areas become more and more important as we start to adapt to and mitigate climate change impacts. You know, playgrounds and recreation are really important, but we do need these natural green spaces to help clean the air and the water and filter pollutants. So I also thank you for going through every item. I really appreciate that as part of the review. The other part is that my understanding is that the city's entire capital budget is funded with debt. So that is the other part of the capital process that is problematic, having no dedicated money for parks projects, but actually having very little dedicated money for other projects and it having to be financed with debt payments. I believe Adams went and asked for $19 billion in bonds from when he was in Albany. And part of that would be the capital project budget.
Thanks for that. All right, let's move on to the next one, which we're gonna start talking about I want to start with capital and then talk about expense. That way I don't get confused.
For fiscal 2024, right?
For fiscal year 2024, yes, exactly. So I'm trying to figure out how the best orderly way to do this. I guess I can, if you raise your hand, I can call on you, I guess. I'm trying to figure out the most. I guess, Stephanie, do you want to start us off? Oh, I think you're on mute.
Are
Yes,
you
I'm
talking
sorry.
about Stephanie Coggins?
Oh, I'm sorry. I forgot there's two
There's
Stephanies.
two Stephanies.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Van
Stephanie
Cortlandt Park
Coggins.
Alliance.
Okay, Stephanie Coggins, are you going as well?
I hadn't originally planned to
Okay, all right,
speak,
okay.
but are we talking about what the priorities are for individual parks at this point? Is that where we're at?
Yes.
Okay, I can't really represent the entire stewards group, but we have discussed it in some small manner. You know, it's Henry Hudson Park is a historic park. We recently managed to get historic signage And many of you may not be aware of the great historic background of the almost 10 acres that make up Henry Hudson Park. But the stewards do our best to keep the park clean and to do the projects that we are able to do. But the park is over 100 years old, and it could use a capital project to repair things like the plaza. However, the one thing that's really important about that is we had a capital project on the lower half of the park that basically closed down Paul's Park, if you will, even though it's part of Henry Hudson Park, for almost an entire year and made changes to it that the community was not in favor of. We really don't want that to happen to the upper park because of the graceful beauty. And as I said, it's over 100 years old. And there are things there like the bluestone tiles that are over 100 years old. And we don't want parks to come in and basically plow it over and turn it into Seton Park, which is a totally different type of park. But I do know that we've been recently talking. Jody may have something to add to this because she certainly has a lot more experience with this than most people, and certainly myself. The plaza is in need of repair. Parks vehicles have been driving out onto the pavement. They're cracking the cement, they're cracking the bluestone. And then that stuff is getting dragged all over the place. So that is a big thing. For me personally, the entire plaza could use a facelift, but number one would be the cement area adjacent to the monument is in dire need of repair. So I think the upper park really needs a very sensitive restoration. I would like to see the right type of parks people work on that, but that's where we're at. So that's what I have to offer.
All right, thanks, Stephanie Coggins. Jody?
As far as Henry Hudson disclosure, I am a member of the Stewards of Henry Hudson Park. I coordinate the recruitment of the volunteers. So we haven't really fully discussed this. I think we're waiting for Dan Reynolds to resolve the issue with the vehicles going over it. It's kind of, that has to be fixed before we can do a capital project. So since that, but I do have a list of things, but since I've spoken quite a lot, I think I'd rather wait to have other groups present. And then if you could come back to me, I did email those to you, and I'd be happy to read them out. It's for multiple parks and their natural areas and some general requests. Is that
Yeah,
okay?
Jody. Yeah, of course. And thanks, Jody, for emailing those. I did receive them.
Thanks.
All right,
Don't forget
Stephanie. I won't.
Thank you.
No
Thank
worries.
you.
Go ahead, Stephanie.
Okay, so just to reiterate some of the things that are still on the list from previous years: the Comfort Station at 251st and Broadway, the Birding Bridge, the $676,000 needed for the Van Cortlandt House Museum fence. And we continue to need help with the stadium. The stadium really is in dire need of an engineering study, and was trying to get a price for that. It could be anywhere from $600,000 to $1 million for the study, but the building has deteriorated exponentially in the past year since Hurricane Ida. We've closed the bathrooms actually because they are, it's dangerous to be in the building. I have staff in there we have storage in there, but it's not great. Also Red Steps. So together, Red Steps restoration and wetland garden installation, roughly a $10 million project. And of course, we've talked a lot in this in this forum about the enslaved African burial ground. It would be amazing to have a memorial, a proper memorial in that space, landscape design and implementation, features like maybe a mosaic, a sculpture, a monument, stone walls, something appropriate, interpretive signage, some wayfinding signage leading to the burial ground, and that's a $4 million project.
All right, thanks Stephanie for that. All right, I'm gonna pass it over to Jackie from Bruss Park.
Yeah, thanks, Ramdat. So I wanted to follow up with Stephanie Coggan's perspective on how renovations or capital projects would be done in her park, or her park, but yeah, you know what I mean. But we have the same concern in Bruss Park, which is it's a charming, charming park. There's very little wrong with the actual design of the park in particular. And, you know, coming from a construction background, I would say we want to do a complete restoration if we do anything, and maybe some upgrades. But it's back in 2019 when we first started really putting ourselves out there to the community board and the Parks Department. It really felt like the staircase going down from the top of the lower park down through the park, through the forest, is inherently dangerous, and that is the one area that people really are using all the time. I mean, I've seen groups of students coming down with flashlights, you know, because they just need to come down that way, and they actually pack flashlights. I don't understand exactly. I mean, I do understand that there's no money here and there, but we create spaces and then we don't maintain them. And of course, we all know this is a big problem. But anyway, I would be all behind a sensitive restoration of the park in and of itself. But I don't trust to hand it over to a city design committee without a lot of input from the community.
I see your hand, David, and I see your hand, Deb. But I just want to, like, I guess, pose a question to Joe. Hey, Joe, are you still on? Joe?
Guess not.
No, I'm still on. I'm still on. I was happy.
No, it's okay. I know sometimes it's hard to unmute. I guess I want to pick your brain on what both Stephanie Coggins and Jackie were saying in regards to repairing a sensitive repairment of Lower Bruss Park, and also the areas around the monument for Henry Hudson Park.
So whenever a capital project is proposed, we have meetings through the community board, through the Parks Committee, where the design team will take recommendations from the community and base their design on what the community wants. So, I mean, I can't see that really being a problem. Like, if the community really wants it to just be like a rehab instead of a redesign, I mean, I guess that could happen. I can't say 100% because I don't, really make decisions when it comes to capital projects. But I know that every project that has gone through has come through this committee, and questions have been asked by the committee members. So yeah. So.
All right, thanks for that. And Jackie, did you have another? Okay. David, and then Deb, and then we'll go to UN after that.
Okay, yes, thank you, Robert. Jacqueline, you raised an interesting question, and I honestly don't know the answer, and maybe Joe, you might be able to. You're suggesting that there are no lights on the stairs leading basically from Manhattan College Parkway and the Upper Bruss down to the Lower Bruss. One, are there no lights there? And two, is that park closed at dusk like most parks are?
So So yes, I would say that technically the park is closed at dusk, but on the other hand, what this pathway is a very nice shortcut from coming down Manhattan College Parkway. And as a design professional, there's no way you're going to force people to go around the long way when they can cut through the park, even though it might be dangerous. And there is in fact no light once you go through that the pathway through the park. There is of course light if you walk around on Manhattan College Parkway. So yeah.
All right, but then what you're doing is you are again creating an attractive nuisance that I think the parks needs to answer for us first. If they are of the belief that it must be closed at night, then that needs to be addressed before we can do anything about adding lights. And don't get me wrong, I think having lights is a lovely idea, but it may be antithetical to how they want to manage a park.
I guess
David,
David,
can I jump in since you said my name?
I'm on a community board meeting that I forgot I had to be on.
I just want to, I guess, point out, so David, I see your point, like when it comes to like the staircase, but I use the staircase through Ewan Park even at night instead of going all the way around, right? So I guess, if you're if the staircase is open, I walk through Ewan Park all the time, even at night. So, like for me, I'd rather use a shortcut instead of going all the way around.
I fully understand. All I'm saying is parks has to answer that question. If they say our park is closed, it must be closed, and therefore we can't have lights, then we can't go any further on a budget item unless we convince them that they have to change their rules and have to allow lights, which I sort of doubt they will. But
David,
I honestly don't have the answer to that.
Yeah, so I was going to say, David, the rule is not dusk.
Yeah.
No, the rule isn't. The rule is dusk in some parks, 10 p.m. in other parks, 1 a.m. in other parks. But the purpose of that rule is for ungated parks that cannot be closed so that the PEP officers can evict people who are doing graffiti. We had Ewan Park stenciled to say it closed at dusk back in the turn of the century because of the vandalism and the keg parties that were in that park. And the PEP officers could not evict people from the park because it wasn't closed. So it's more for being able to say, hey, you can't stay here, the park is closed, if there's a report of trouble, otherwise they can't do anything. So that's what that rule is. And since you said my name, that's why I jumped in.
Okay, but again, we need that answer. Well, whether those two parks, whether parks wants to be considered them open for the certain hours, because if they don't want it considered open for those hours, then we can't ask for lights.
Well, Dave, we could definitely look a little deeper into it, but I also know that light usually doesn't invite people. It usually scares people doing the wrong thing off. So it wouldn't be like we're putting lights, so we're promoting you come hang out there. But this is definitely something we could talk about more. I could get a little more clarification, but
that's fine. I have no problem with that.
Yeah.
I actually don't care what the answer is. I just want to make sure that Parks is on board and we're not chasing a project that Parks is going to say, sorry, we don't want people in there after dusk or whatever the case may be.
Yeah,
and
we'll get some
if we disagree with your ultimate answer, we may want to petition you on that. But I don't think we should be pursuing capital projects along those lines if they don't coincide with how Parks envisioned those individual parks being used. That's all.
Okay. Yeah.
And I appreciate your pursuing that information, Joe.
Yep.
All right. I guess let's pass it on. I did say you, Deb, did you have a question in regards to Brush Park or?
Yeah, I just wanted to
Okay.
speak to the historical renovation idea that,
Yep.
like, you know, in Fort Independence, I can say that, that, you know, as Joe describes, they do get community feedback. And certainly we've seen here in the Parks Committee, like around Strong Street Playground, when they came and did the presentation, that, you know, we advocated for keeping the cobblestones or integrating them into the design of the park. And they did that to a degree. However, you know, it's a lot of taking your hands off the wheel and not having much control and kind of hoping for the best. And so it's always weighing the utility of this public safety and kind of the general condition of the park versus like maintaining some of these really wonderful historic features that, you know, you may or may not get to keep, and unless you have a strong conservancy like Central Park Conservancy, which can hire its own designers and kind of essentially take over the process, right? So that's what I would say. Like, I think that if you really value like certain elements, like the steps or whatever, that it's good to, you're probably right to be a bit cautious about proceeding with advocating for renovations. You know, if you're mostly happy. I just do disagree with David. I think that the hours of the park are probably after dark, and so that we should like assume that, and, you know, add lights to the pathway as a item, and then remove it if, you know, when you talk to the Parks Department, they say that that would not be something that they would like for that park, or that the park shouldn't have people in it after dark. I know that the lights in Fort Independence, people use it as a cut through all the time to get from one side of the reservoir to the other, and the lights are great, and they're beautiful. So
I'm not opposed to the lights. I just want to hear what Parks has to say about those two parks before we pursue lights. That's all. And Joe has already volunteered to do that. So I think we should, you know, follow along on that.
All right. Layla, or I'm sorry, UN Park. You're on mute. You need to unmute. Yeah.
I'm standing in for Julie and Mason Jenkins, who are really the core leaders, of course, of the UN Park volunteer group. And I'm not fully up to date on all of the needs of the park, but what I can say is that the portion of the staircase, you probably know, Ram, from taking it near Johnson, is in much need of repair, and it becomes quite perilous in bad weather because the irregular stones on the staircase can be quite dangerous. So the upper portion of the stairs is something to be looked into. And then we've been doing kind of regular work on just cleaning the park. And two things that I've noticed is when construction was done on Cambridge, people just dumped, you know, cupboards and refuse, debris alongside the three houses, attached houses that are actually look like they're in the park, but they're private homes. But at any rate, to the west of them, there's a lot of debris that we can't take away. We would need a dumpster, maybe even some heavy, I don't know if equipment, but it's more than volunteers can handle. And also along Johnson Avenue, people over the years have thrown garbage over the wall. And, you know, some of it probably attracts vermin, et cetera, but it would be hopefully nice to get that cleared out. I don't know how that would be done, however, because somebody would have to jump down in there and it looks a little bit dangerous, but we're really focusing on cleaning up the park. And I know that Julie has been looking at purchasing plants that can be used around the benches on Riverdale and 231st, just to make the entrance to the park more inviting. So there are things like that that would be wonderful if that could be put in a budget. But one of the things, I don't know if Joe is somebody who can help with this. There's a lockbox that was finally purchased to put tools in, and it's attached to the fence in the dog park. But Julie and Mason have not as yet, this is months, been able to get the keys. So they are hauling tools back and forth from their home on 231st and Tibbet so that we can clean up and work on the park. And it's just a matter of somebody can move the process ahead so that they can get the key, so we can store the tools in the park and they don't need to be schlepping them back and forth. That would be very, very helpful.
Yeah. So the key. Go ahead, Joe. Sorry.
I was going to speak on that real quick. The last I heard, I don't know if it was like about 2 weeks ago. This was in the hands. So I guess like there's an agreement that needs to be signed between Partnership for Parks and the Friends of Ewan. So I don't know if they were ever able to sign that agreement, but I could check in with Linda tomorrow to see where it is in the process. And just real quick, the slope. I'll take a look at the slope. We actually have a slope crew. I mean, we have to schedule it way in advance. They actually rappel with ropes and, you know, and the whole nine. And maybe we could schedule that before the summer, before the fall, the weeds grow and stuff. So, all right, that's it.
And Rob, did you wanna? I know you sent in, you know, a few things.
Yeah.
I don't know if you wanted to bring that up.
Yeah, I mean, Julie did make the point that she's more interested in more general park restoration, like lighting and benches and flower beds. That has already been mentioned. You know, I'm focused on the dog run, which is a disaster. But this is all maintenance stuff. And so one of Julie's points was that we don't need a lot of capital stuff. We just need manpower and maintenance. So the dog run needs like a top layer of soil because they have these dangerous rocks and glass kind of poking up through the ground. The benches are undermined by the dogs digging under them. And then just this weekend, the interior fence just fell apart. So the interior fence is inoperable. And so that means there's a kind of dangerous situation every time a dog enters or exits the park because they all kind of crowd around the only gate there. You don't have that double gate security. I think Joe may know about this already because I sent in a 311 and I also contacted Eric Dinowitz's office and a park worker today said he thinks it's on the list, so maybe he can respond to that.
Yeah, so we put work requests in for them to repair issues like that. So the work request was submitted. It's just a matter of them getting there. The wood chips, we did a big wood chip job a while ago. You know, we could definitely schedule that. Yeah, we could definitely schedule some wood chips. And then I could also leave. Let's see what happens about me scheduling so like a big wood chip job, and then maybe leaving some for you guys if you want to fill in like holes or, you know, stuff like that.
Thank you.
Perfect. David, do you have a question?
Yeah, I just want to say there was mention before about Henry Hudson Park, and most of the projects, they all sound like good things, but there's also mention of redoing the statue of Hendrick Hudson, and I went searching for this picture. This is a picture up close and personal of Hendrick from the scaffolding from when the statue, the monument, the whole monument was completely refurbished less than 6 years ago. So I wouldn't focus on doing that as a project, but I think that the rest of the projects suggested are probably valid. But Hendrick has been shown some TLC in recent years.
Deb and then Jody.
Yeah, I just wanted to advocate for the parks that are around the Jerome Park Reservoir. So those are the parks that we care for at Jerome Park Friends and Neighbors. The two of them are already on the capital budget priorities list. One is Washington's Walk, which hasn't had a renovation since 1988, and could use just, just a light touch of like benches, a wrought iron fence to replace kind of the metal fence that it has, and just like a reseating of steps and stuff. The bigger renovation that's needed is at Fort 4, which hasn't been renovated since 1998. It has many different dated pieces of playground equipment. The basketball court is heavily used. It's a centerpiece for the whole neighborhood. And lots of folks, we did some visioning work there pre-COVID, and people would come up and tell us about how they had grown up playing in that park, and now they were playing there with their kids. And it's just a real heart and soul for folks who live right around the southern end of the reservoir. So I just really want to advocate for getting some capital dollars spent there. And then those two parks are in one city council person's district, in Sanchez's district. At the north end of the reservoir in Councilman Dinowitz's district is Fort Independence. Fort Independence is generally in really great shape. The dog run was not is of a different era of dog runs, and is also very, very heavily used. So the dog run it's not ADA compatible in that we have two people who use it who are wheelchair bound, and whenever it rains, the stone and stuff washes out, so they get stuck and they can't get up the lift. And so we're often ourselves putting mulch down to help them, and then Aquarius, who takes care of the park, is also putting mulch down and constantly kind of rearranging. So basically, it needs new subsurface. There's water in the dog run, but it's for gardening, and really it would be much better served as water for the dogs and shade. Like there's no shade at all in the dog run, and so it's often not used in the summer because it's too hot. So would love to just see an update, kind of a small capital project there to bring it up to kind of more modern standards.
Perfect.
Thank you.
And Jody?
Are there any other groups represented before I go through my long list?
I think you are the last one when it comes
Realize
to capital.
that there are many projects within parks, not to mention projects within the other committees. And it really, we're not even allowed to submit more than 35 or 40 altogether from our community board. So just please keep that in mind, but please do advocate.
Yeah, so David, the budget process for community groups has always been not just for what is allowed to be submitted, but to give the community board an update on the things that are important to us, because many of us are on the ground multiple times. Stewards of Henry Hudson Park have been out every other week year round. We were out that 17-degree day. We had 29 people in the park. So part of it is it's up to the community board to prioritize these, but I think we should not limit the list to 35 and just keep these on the record, and they can be added. Some of the projects that we are talking about, the budget has changed so much. There used to be up to $100,000 projects that did not have to go through capital. And one of the issues that I know we're doing capital, but can I do expense as well and kick off the next round? Is that
Yeah,
okay?
sure.
All right. So one of the reasons why we need capital projects to repair the plaza and broken stonework, rehabilitate the stairs at UN Park, is because there's not enough maintenance and operations funding for them to get to the work in a timely manner. So when you're dealing with stonework, pavers, stairs, any cracks, water gets into it, it freezes, it expands, it makes that crack bigger, then seeds get in it. So it creates a process that ends up in needing a capital project. You know, the dog run was installed in Ewan Park, but that was it. There wasn't maintenance, there wasn't the smaller things. And it's like taking care of your home. You take care of things as they occur, or you've got to do a big expensive renovation. So I really feel like the expense budget, and part of the reason is the response that Bob Bender described, is ask your council member. Council members do like to fund ribbon cutting things, like those are very, you know, the picture, you know, with, or the big check. And it's not sexy to fund maintenance and operations, but that's the baseline that we need for parks. There's never been an analysis of exactly how many workers do we need to maintain citywide all the acres that we do have. It's really been accepting scraps that the city council is willing to give us because other things are more important. So with that said, I'm going to switch and just read my list, and was more interested in whether you had questions about it. I have 2 items for Spuyten Duyvil Shorefront Park, which could replace the retaining wall one, because now it's 20 years later and it's a bigger problem. So for Spuyten Duyvil Shorefront Park, item 1 is rehabilitation and restoration of natural areas, trails, wetlands, and aquatic features. The second one is a larger, more directed project in those areas, is a green infrastructure project to divert, absorb, and clean stormwater runoff from catch basin streets and the Henry Hudson Bridge outfalls that drain into the stream bed that feeds the 2 ponds in the park before discharging overflow into the sewer system and Harlem River. The park has been devastated, not just by Victor, but by the MTA bridge contractors. I've worked very hard since retiring to get their staging area reined in. They were parking vehicles, compacted the soil. The water was a foot deep in the park where there used to be vegetation. And the disruption of construction also encourages invasives. So the park was dedicated in, I think, 1967, but was not created as a natural area until 1994. And there was over $300,000 of native plants put in there. They're all gone. So I am taking, even though I've been in Shorefront Park since it was built, which does include Half Moon Overlook, I am taking the Super Stewards training, which is required by the Parks Department if you want to volunteer in a natural area. So those 2 capital items in the budget would allow the Friends of Spuyten Duyvil to continue to support the Parks Department in doing the less sexy things, which is a natural area. They're super important, and not to be a Disney version of a natural area, but being a productive, functioning habitat and ecological resource. So those are the 2, and I would be fine if you wanted to take off the pond wall, because now I want more. 20 years later, I want more. So the other capital project is also—
Jody, before you go on, can I suggest, you know, I was just looking up what the parks priorities are for 2022, and, you know, resilience planning is one of them. And so I wonder if that's a way to make it sexier. Because I mean, it is resiliency. It helps that it's an honest assessment of what you're describing, but that planning for long-term resiliency of open spaces is a primary objective of New York City Parks. I'm reading it right off of the Parks website. So maybe that's part of what we should integrate into that goal to try to make it, and maybe it could be a joint with ENS, a joint resolution with Environment and Sanitation to also kind of elevate it.
Yeah, that would be great. Thank you, because that means you've been paying attention when I'm ranting about the park and water. So, yes, and of course, I trust the community board to rephrase these as appropriate. I just tried to do some of the heavy lifting for you. But yeah, stormwater is a big part of resiliency, as we know, with all the flooding that has happened in the community. A lot of it is because we have impervious surfaces. And if we don't divert some of the water into these green spaces and use these green spaces to slow the water down, we're going to be in bigger trouble. So, so feel free to rewrite that. I did email it to Ramdat so that the committee and the board had something to edit.
So it's also coastal resiliency too, right, Jody? It's not just stormwater going down. It would also be coming in from, like, if we have a hurricane with a high surge.
So Spuyten Duyvil Shorefront Park is in the primary flood area. So the good news is that the upper part of Edsel Avenue is 20 feet above the rest of the park. But, you know, there has been flooding during Hurricane Irene and Sandy. The park, this park, and then Riverdale Park, I'll talk about that. All the water that's coming off all of the, you know, we are having increased development, which is more surfaces, more cars, more parking in these buildings. So all of that is washing into the stream that runs through the park and then going into the river. And just like Tibbetts Brook, if we can pull some of these water bodies out of our sewer system, we do become a more resilient community because there's more capacity and there's not overflows. So, you know, I'm happy to work with the committee to rephrase some of these to make them more palatable, but I'm patient because I waited 20 years to update this. You know, just let me know and I'll be happy to do that. Perfect.
Thanks, Jody.
And I'll move on to the second park, Riverdale Park. It's very similar. A green infrastructure project to divert, absorb, and clean stormwater runoff from the Henry Hudson Parkway, apartment buildings, private parking lot, and other impervious surfaces that drain into the Alderbrook stream bed, which runs through the park and discharges directly into the Hudson River. I didn't look it up, but I believe that there was a huge renovation with the DEC grant of Alderbrook 10 to 15 years ago, but there's been no maintenance of it. And with a lot more development, there was a new parking lot put in that now has storm drains that empty directly into the stream bed. It's really torn up and there's more polluted water dumping straight into the Hudson River. So not just member funding, but there are DEC grants for stormwater that Parks Department has used in the past. So, and I'm also speaking on green infrastructure on Saturday at Speak Up, which is why it's on my mind. So do any of the committee members or board members have questions about Alderbrook before I go to my expense items? Okay, I'm going to switch back and read to you. General additional personnel for manual invasive removal and tree work. Most of the parks and recreation funding is focused on recreation, on playgrounds, ball courts, ball fields. The natural areas are much different in that you can't just do a planting. It changes over time. And with resiliency and climate change, reducing the amount of pesticides that are used, reducing the amount of chemicals that are used that run off into the rivers is very important, but the invasive problem is massive and cannot be addressed with the staff that they have. And that's why they're training volunteers to do a lot of that work. So I would be happy if you put in, my real item is increase the parks and the parks maintenance and operation budget to a minimum of 2% of the city's operating budget, you know. That's my real request. And then also more tree planting contracts. Many of the trees in our community were put in 20, 30 years ago. And we are losing some of them in storms. There are many empty tree pits, especially along Knowles Crescent and the highway. So if we start asking for these contracts for fiscal year 2024, perhaps it'll be time to replace them. I also know that all the borough presidents got together and requested that Mayor Adams plant another 1 million trees, but without contracts for maintenance, the 1.5 million that were already planted did not survive very long. Many volunteers took care of them. So, you know, without maintenance and operations money, everything that we're asking for will have to be rebuilt in 10 years. So, you know, those have always been my issues with parks, is you need to fund the basic day-to-day stuff. So I'm happy to try to write a different language for you if that helps, or leave it up to you to figure out how to get that basic money, because if we don't ask for it, it's not going to happen.
Thanks.
Okay,
Jody.
that's the end of my list. Thank you.
Amazing. Jackie?
Yeah, hi. So I was thinking, listening to this, because I know Deb and Jody are very, and several of the others of you are very involved in your parks. It sounds to me like each one of us needs to, representing a park, needs to put a compiled report together. Does that make any sense? Am I missing the point here? But that, so that you have a comprehensive collection of the parks that are in your purview, to sort of understand what the whole picture is in terms of capital needs. Is something like that of use? It seems a little bit of piecemeal on this particular Zoom meeting, but in fact, I could go on and on about what our park needs, and in fact, it was last renovated in 1985, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. None of the original plantings, and I have the plans for the park, are still there. So, you know, I suspect that we are all in a position to make as lengthy and detailed a statement as Deb and Jody have also made. If that's something of interest and helpful, certainly Stewards of Brush Park can put their piece together. But seems like it might be a good idea, but let me know.
Yeah, I don't.
And last but not least, the maintenance and upkeep is so critical, and you're literally wasting money. Like our first hurrah and success in 2019, we were able to raise some funds, and we got matching funds, and we had about $6,000, and we bought plants, and we've planted those. And they require constant maintenance and care, and they actually die out, and then they have to be replanted with new. And this is not a one-time and just drop it and leave it kind of situation. So I think somehow we need to advocate for that very strongly. Otherwise, it's just wasting money.
Yeah.
Said my
Deb, did you have your hand up? Any other expense requests?
Oh, I do have one expense request.
Yep.
The playground in Fort Independence, the mats underneath the playground. I don't know when they were last done, but they're all rolled up and deformed, and kids are tripping. They're now the tripping hazard of Fort Independence playground.
Yeah. Bob, did you have anything to add?
No, you know, we have in the past requested more gardeners and more maintenance, and that has always been an issue with the parks. And you know, as several people have said, if you don't do the maintenance, you wind up with a capital project down the road. So I wholeheartedly agree with emphasizing the importance of increasing the budget for maintenance personnel in all the parks.
Yeah.
What if we just did a resolution just asking for that 1% funding? Just as a separate item from the Parks Department as a resolution, just to really put that forward, because I mean, it is true, every year we need this money.
Yes, percent for parks. Yes.
I don't see any reason not to do it.
I don't see any reason.
I agree, but that's a separate thing to discuss. I just wanted to comment, Jacqueline, frankly, you're an advocate and you should advocate on behalf of what you think is important to you and your neighbors. I believe that is Brush Park, and you're entitled to advocate and you should advocate. And then we, as a committee, should consider all of the submissions in the context of various equitable situations across the community district. But no, you certainly should advocate whatever you think is important. And if you are gung ho Brush Park, go for it. And I say that really to all. You know, Jody has done the same thing, and Stephanie, and you know, everybody tends to have a particular interest, and you should.
Jody.
So I just want to bring up, if we're done with the list, I just want to bring up a concern about the budget and future funding for parks. And it's part of why I like the idea of the community board discussing, taking a stand about the overall parks budget, is that Sue Donahue comes from the a conservancy, and there has been a tremendous push to try to privatize parks and have, you know, we have Van Cortlandt Park Alliance, but to have those parks, many parks, raise money themselves to do all these projects. And the stewards are doing that on a small scale, but we're doing things that add value to the park that aren't part of the regular thing. We're doing events that bring people into parks. But when Bloomberg ran in 2000, you could Google the article, it's from 2001. You know, I'm waving my arms and throwing a tantrum about how can't rely on privatization. And if the city is saying that parks are important in COVID, that they are actually essential in being outdoor health for city or the mental health and physical health benefits, then we have to be careful to protect them from the maintenance and operations and the capital projects being the responsible of the citizens to fundraise the money through an alliance, through, you know, people giving, you know, corporations giving money and putting their names on parks. So I just want to put that on the radar of the committee, is to just be on the watch. I don't know what Commissioner Donahue's agenda will be for parks, but there has been a lot of talk in other groups that I'm in about the concern about using Prospect Park, you know, as a model for what should happen in the smaller parks, and citywide, you know, in other parts of the Bronx, St. Anne's Park, they're not going to be able to do that. So, so that's why maintenance and operations is so crucial to the health and future of our parks. So that's my speech for the night.
Is there any other expense budget requests? Perfect. All right. Any new business? Any new things that need to be brought up? Seeing none. Amazing. Any old business? Go ahead, Deb.
Trees, any update on the reservoir trees? You
No.
can say no.
Unfortunately, no. I'm working. I'm
I feel you. I totally, but I didn't put it on a list, put it on a fresh sticky for next month.
I feel like there's like more and more items that keep getting added to my list every
You
month.
should see my, yeah, you should see my Excel doc.
Hey, Stephanie.
I did not respond fast enough to new business.
Oh, go ahead.
Sorry. So in Van Cortlandt Park, near the stables, there is Mashalou Avenue kind of runs into the park. And I don't think that I'm able to share my screen, am I?
I can make you a co-host. Give me a second.
Okay.
All right. You should be able to now.
Okay. Can folks see my screen? Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. So this is the area. And this is, we're zooming in a little bit more. And if you visit the park, you're probably familiar with the parking lots that you walk past. And then on the left side, there is, it's kind of a mess. It is, it's an area that VCPA, Van Cortlandt Park Alliance, uses for educational purposes, and Parks Department uses as sort of a storage area. And kind of a staging area when plants arrive. So you can see we do our programming in here. We do some composting. Jody, I know you're very familiar with the spot. And then you can see how kind of disgusting it is. It is pretty gross. Can you see my cursor? This is a giant pile of garbage. It is a mountain of garbage that has been in the park for over 20 years. And it is, according to some folks, it was sanitation who started dumping there originally. You know, we're not too far from the DOT. There's a DOT presence in Van Cortlandt Park, and there's a giant salt pile in the park. So somewhere along the way, sanitation and DOT started dumping here, then parks started dumping here. So over time, soil has kind of accumulated, and now we have, you know, some little trees poking out, but basically the area is an eyesore. We are hoping and in the process of kind of improving it. Again, this is an overview on the left side. This is what the area looks like with our space that we use for educational programming, and the area on the right for park storage. And what we're going to do is we're going to flip it so that the Hort Yard is on the left, and the right side is going to have some more educational gardening space. And here's a little bit more detail. Again, the Hort Yard space on the left, and some more detail here. This is the soil pile. It's a very nice way of saying mountain of garbage. So we just want to let you all know that there's going to be some, we hope, work happening there where we remove the mountain of garbage and we make this more hospitable for children's programming that we will run through Van Cortlandt Park Alliance, and welcoming kids to do some horticulture work there, some growing of vegetables. But in the process, there are on that mountain some kind of not so great trees have kind of started to pop up, and they are now unsteady because they're basically on a pile of rocks. So so those smaller trees are going to come down. So I wanted to give a heads up about that. And there's also, this is an area that hasn't seen much in the way of tree maintenance. It's been a few years, according to forestry. So so there will be some work coming up. They're just waiting for good weather to start. They'll be in the area for a few days. And, you know, they're going to do some pruning. If, you know, trees aren't in good shape, they may take them down. But nothing major, but just wanted to give a heads up about that. I see questions.
Yeah,
But
thanks
Stephanie,
for that.
you know that pouring dirt on garbage is how Fresh Kills and Pelham Bay Park became the two largest parks in the city.
Yes, I do.
I had no idea. I'm sorry to hear that.
Yeah, it's pretty gross.
Jody and Bob.
Oh my gosh, Stephanie, that's so exciting. I actually had looked at that spot for a compost facility to expand what was happening in the parks, in the smaller garden. For those of you who don't know, for almost 20 years, I managed the NYC Compost Project at the New York Botanical Garden, and even did my volunteer service hours at Van Cortlandt Park. And also the Compost Project actually built that garden, which was just a compost demonstration site, in 1994. It was the first compost area in a New York City park. So I'm so excited to hear that. I don't have access to it, but I probably have pictures from 2015 when I was exploring that. My recollection is it's very muddy. And we were discussing, Sarah and Christina and I were talking about, if that soil is removed, is it going to be super wet because that soil's holding in a lot of the water? So I just wanted to say how excited I am and give you the heads up that that was a concern many years ago about how much water is being absorbed in that area, and is it actually partially a wetland?
Bob?
Go ahead.
Oh, sorry, Stephanie.
So yeah, we are really aware of how wet and mushy it is, but it is not technically a wetland.
All right, Bob?
Yeah, Stephanie, it makes a lot of sense to swap those two areas. I mean, certainly it's a lot better to have the larger area for education and, you know, activities for kids and all that sort of thing, and to reduce the storage area. But did I hear you correctly say that you were going to remove a lot of the garbage from that area?
We are going to try, yeah.
And where are you going to remove it to?
Well, we're going to be looking at it to see what it is, and so that's the challenge. We've tested the soil. It is not contaminated. There's nothing wrong with it. It's not garbage per se. It's more like there's Belgian block and there's bricks. So it's kind of considered construction rubble. And there are companies that will take it and they sort it and they charge you for it. So that is likely where it would go.
Well, there are some areas of the park where you have some drainage lined with Belgian block within the park. So, I mean, you might even be able to use some of that for some maintenance and repair within the park itself.
That's the question. It's the sorting of it that's going to be a challenge. We may not have the capacity to do that, but you know, if there is anything salvageable, you know, we like to reuse, so we will do that if we can.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Thanks. David?
Yeah, Stephanie, to that end, exactly. I've actually spoken with Dan Reynolds. There is probably a need for Belgian block across from Half Moon Garden in that bizarre triangle of Palisade Avenue and Independence Avenue, where they never put in a curb when they rebuilt the wall. So just keep that in the back of your mind, maybe talking about it with Dan. Several hundred square feet of Belgian block probably could be used there, if in fact you have good Belgian block.
That's good to know. I'll talk with Dan. Thank you.
Okay.
All right. I guess any other old business? Oh, Deb, that was not the tree update you wanted, but Stephanie gave you a tree update. Unfortunately.
It's not, I don't take just any old tweet update, Ramdat.
All right. So it is 8:40.
I do have two things, Ramdat. Real quick. One, what our next steps with the budget? Are you going to put together the two lists and send them around to us before, in advance of the March meeting?
I will, yes, I will. And then, yeah, I will.
Okay, and we can talk and I can give you some format to help you expedite the process.
Thanks. 'cause,
The
you
other
know,
is
I'm new to this.
Yeah, oh yeah, no, please, give me a call whenever you want. I'll be glad to help you expedite it. The other thing is, frankly, I want to give Christina a chance to brag about parks this weekend. To speak up.
Oh, yes, thank you. Bronx Park Speak Up is this Saturday from 11 till 4 p.m. It's virtual. If you go to the Bronx Park Speak Up website, you can register now through Eventbrite to get a link for the Zoom that will have several presentations. I'll be presenting on daylighting of Brook and a bunch of workshops. And the first hour is tabling, virtual tabling, where you get to go from chat room to talk to different groups. So if you're available, join us on Saturday.
Amazing. Bob.
Yeah, I think you're about to end the meeting, Ramdot, and I just wanted to mention, we have not yet approved the January minutes.
Yes, I just realized that. I was so excited to talk about parks, apparently. All right, let me pull up the meeting minutes. Yeah, so first thing, I know there was some back and forth about the minutes. And I've changed the language for Rosemary and David. And I apologize for not sending this before the meeting. Pretty much a lot of things stayed the same. I changed Rosemary's, her recommendation, and me and David had a phone call, and I changed his stuff regarding Half Moon Overlook. But more so, everything was more in line when I rewatched the recording. Any discussion on the minutes? Was your hand up from before?
I just noticed right there, you mentioned Nina Bonilla. Are you thinking
Oh,
of Linda?
it's Linda. It's Linda, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I just happened to notice that.
It's Linda. Bob, was your hand up from earlier or?
Yeah, sorry, I forgot to take it down.
Oh, okay, no worries. Go ahead, Rob.
Could you read the language for the Rosemary section, just so that it agrees with the language or is close to what I used?
Yeah, so Rosemary believes a schedule, we should devise up a schedule of quarterly, Lord mercy, it's been a long day. Quarterly meetings, approximately 4 times, for DPR to come back to the Parks Committee and report on Tibbetts Brook.
Okay, good. That's
and
what I
on
have.
daylighting. Yep.
Yeah. Okay, good. Thank you.
Perfect. Any other discussion or questions? Are there any motions on the floor?
Move to approve.
Second.
Second. Perfect. All in favor? Anybody against? Any abstentions? Perfect. All right. Amazing. First of all,
One piece of not new business, maybe just to see where we're landing on the resolution to for 1% park funding. Are we gonna discuss that at the next meeting, or David would know better what the timing is in relationship to when it, we don't want to be too late with it. I don't know when it matters the most.
No, it's an interesting point. I would think that it really refers to this is the mayor's first budget. I would think it would refer to the 23 budget. And so therefore, we are responsible to get our comments back about the OMB comments by March 15th. So frankly, I think that we should offline develop a resolution to bring forward to exec next week for rough review, but moreover to vote on as a board. What is that? The 8th, I guess, the following week. But yeah, I think you're right, Deb. I think the timing would be important, that we really should try to get it at the March board meeting. So it's can be sort of encompassed in our comments about 2023 budgeting.
Right, and I think we could do a quick, like on this call, just to therefore be it resolved that the Parks Committee, the Community Board 8, strongly supports 1% funding for New York City parks in the fiscal year 23 budget.
That works for me.
Yeah, I think we should also say something to the effect that not only do park advocates want the 1%, but Eric Adams ran on a promise of 1% funding for parks. It could be as simple as a be it resolved clause without any whereases. You know, we don't have to make it elaborate.
Mm-hmm. So the first resolve clause would be would that be the campaign promise one, or?
It could be as simple as be it resolved that since Mayor Eric Adams ran on a platform of 1% of the city budget for parks funding, and parks advocates have long recommended 1% of the budget, and the budget itself, I'm beginning to realize we do need a whereas clause because this is getting too tangled.
Yeah,
I think we need a simple whereas clause that says, whereas Eric Adams ran on a platform of 1% of the city budget for parks, and parks advocates have long advocated for 1% of the city budget for parks, and the budget proposed by the mayor actually allocates 1/2 of 1% of the city budget for parks. Therefore, be it resolved that Parks Committee and eventually Bronx Community Board 8 urges the mayor and the city council to allocate 1% of the city budget for parks funding.
Oh, and to make permanent. To increase to 1% and to make permanent. That's the thing. The other thing they've been advocating forever is to make the funding permanent so that they can plan. Is that right? Correct? Am I correct, Stephanie?
Yeah, not to lard this down. Not to lard this down.
To baseline it. Yeah.
Yes, that's the term I was looking for, baseline.
Not to lard this down, but do we also want to mention that all 5 borough presidents concurred?
I'm not aware of that, David, but if that's the case, I don't see any reason not to include it.
Okay.
Can I also have 2 asks? I suggest there be a whereas clause that refers to the importance of parks during COVID and also links it to the maintenance and operations and climate change. Those are 2 things. Because my bigger ask is there will be budget hearings in probably in committee. The city council is preparing their response right now to the mayor's preliminary budget, which usually comes out at the end of March. And then there will be hearings. Usually the committees are in May and the full hearing is in June. Previous other committees have written letters of testimony sharing what the constituency has said to the community board about the importance of the issue and asking for these things. So if this resolution could also be submitted as testimony during one of the committee hearings or full hearing, that would be amazing to have that voice in there.
Perfect. All right.
And then I'll steal the language and share it with people in other community boards so they can testify too.
All All
And
right.
I'm in favor of mentioning the COVID because I think that really is an important point for the parks. They were a refuge during the entire COVID epidemic. I don't want to get into details about maintenance and all of that. I mean, what we want is we want the 1%. And I know the Parks Department will know how to spend it if they get the money.
Yeah. And it's probably
So that-
worth, it was during COVID and that even going forward in the future, like for our own mental health coming
Right.
out of the pandemic.
Right, Bob, I just said mentioning the maintenance and operations, so it doesn't become we gave the Parks Department capital money and that's part of the 1%. We're talking about the expense budget for maintenance and operations and personnel.
Right, so it's
That was my
1%,
clarification.
1% of for maintenance, that's what maintenance and operations.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. I have two things to send the committee, the list and also this draft resolution. I will try to get it to you all by, I want to say Sunday, the latest. Because I need to get the recording of this as well. So that way I can cross-reference, a lot of the things that were said. So the latest, definitely resolution Sunday, and also the list of both capital and expense requests. Jody, was your hand up from before or?
Oh, it was, but I want to just publicly say, thank you so much. I appreciate that you reached out to so many groups to invite us to participate in the process and that you gave everyone time to talk about their issues, whether they were expense or capital project requests or not. So I just wanted to publicly say thank you for that.
No, thank you all for, coming here, and I know you all can be doing anything else on this lovely fine evening, but to advocate for your parks is very, it's a great thing to see the community coming out and sharing and advocating. And any last things?
I move that we to adjourn the meeting.
All in favor?
I need a second.
Oh, second, Bob seconds.
Second.
Perfect.
No roll call, please.
I can do a roll call. Let me stop. All right. Thank you all so much. And I looking forward to seeing you all soon. I'll see the committee soon as well. All right, y'all. Have a great evening.
Thank you. Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Good night.
Sorry, this one wasn't an hour.
2
I
hours
tried.
for a budget meeting is amazing. It's amazing.
All right. Good night, Jody. Thank you all.
Good night.